Hello everyone, I'm Brian and welcome back. Let's go and get started.
Then there is another way, which is a very ancient opponent of this Vedantic perspective, is
Buddhism?
Buddhism. Again, yesterday, Professor Chakravarti was talking about the Buddhistic attack on the Vedantic or the Vedic idea of self. Atman, Brahman, that there is a permanent self, that there is a permanent God. The Buddhists deny it, they dismiss it. What are the arguments? So very quickly, yesterday Professor Chakravarti told us 5 arguments based on the work of Dharmakirti.
Now I'll say this. I want to distinguish between attack and challenge. Attack means make it seems like it's very intent to destroy or something like that. Whereas to challenge an idea, well, it's the challenge and attack can be seen as similar but different. Attack seems to be more hostile, in my opinion. I'm hoping it's not an attack, but more of a challenge of the ideas. Kind of like how I challenge my own ideas and I challenge other people's ideas, but I don't attack them. Although I guess it could feel like that sometimes.
One argument is Anupalabdhi, that we do not find a self. We find body and mind. Where is this self? Anupalabdhi means non-perception. If you think that something is there and it can be seen, and you go and look and you see it's not there, then that itself, that not perceiving it, is a proof that it does not exist.
That is strange. As much as I want to have a positive bias towards Buddhism because it was my first introduction into Eastern philosophy in my college course. Now hopefully this is modern Buddhism, but I don't know. But yeah, to say that if you cannot see it, it doesn't exist. You can't see air necessarily, but I guess you could feel it if you just move your hands. Like I feel something, but I can't see it. I can't perceive it, but I can experience it through touch. Perhaps you get a microscope, you can maybe see the air molecules, perhaps, or like you can see there are different kinds of cameras that can actually see air movement, kinda, or maybe that's with smoke. But I'm wondering if perceiving things is it through just the natural 5 organs, or can you use external things like microscopes and whatnot to perceive it as well? I wonder if they count that as proof.
Absence of apprehension is apprehension of absence. You not perceiving it is the proof that it does not exist. Not that anybody is saying that the self is something which you can see, and if I don't see it, then it does not exist. It can touch or smell or taste. I don't touch the self, I don't smell the self. It's not as crude as that. We understand that the self is a psychological entity. It must be something in the mind. And when we examine the mind, we do not find the self. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, he says this several centuries after Dharmakirti. He says that when I examine my mind, I find sensations, pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. I find thoughts and memories and ideas and pleasures and pains. I do not find the self.
That is the interesting thing, though, is that you are aware of all these things. You are aware of the pleasures and pains, the memories. Our brain is very much a lot of things. It's I don't know how to interpret it other than computers, but it's like, in the sense, your CPU and your hard drive. It's the computer. It's literally the computer. Everything else is the inputs, inputs, outputs. Couple outputs actually. Number 2 outputs. Anyways, but yeah, so the brain is like an entire computer. I can't say it's just a CPU because CPU does the thinking, but it doesn't hold the memory. You have RAM, which is short-term memory. You have your hard drives, or SSDs, or PCI NVMe's, which are your long-term memory. You have your graphics cards. You have your sound card. You have your nose card. I don't know what that one is. You have your mouth card too. Your DVD, Blu-ray drives, if that's even a thing anymore. But yes, you have all these things, but what is the thing that's being able to perceive all of this? Now, I will say this. Perhaps science hasn't come far enough to discover that yet. I'm open-minded about that. That's the thing that I keep pointing out. Um, it's just that perhaps, I'm not saying it is or isn't, but perhaps science has not gotten, or technology hasn't gotten far enough to be able to say, we see a lot of activity over here. And then we need someone like Sadhguru to do this on, where, when he meditates, and then when he starts thinking of things, perhaps we can narrow down the position. Most people's minds are always constantly active, so it's kind of hard to say, well, there's a lot of activity, and we don't know which one it is yet. But with Sadhguru, like he went to that one science institute where he meditated, and they thought he was dead. He said, "No, please just say I'm brain dead, not dead," or something like that. But with his ability to quiet his mind, perhaps we can kind of narrow it down when technology catches up.
Where is this self? Just fleeting, changing thoughts and feelings and emotions, memories. Where is the self in all of this? So, first proof, first attack of the Buddhist, self, Atma does not exist because you do not see it, you do not experience it. Second proof, second attack of the Buddhists is that if you try to infer the Atman, say from some psychological fact like memory, I who experienced the cookie yesterday, today I remember it. So memory, past experience is remembered now. This memory proves that there is a continuity of self. Otherwise what will happen? That somebody else ate the cookie and somebody else is remembering the eating of the cookie. That's silly. I who ate the cookie, I am the same one who am remembering it. Therefore, can I say that I am the one constant self between the eating and the remembering? So does memory prove a constant self? The Buddhist says no. Memory does not prove a permanent, unchanging self. The idea of samskaras, a changing bundle of traces giving rise to memory at each instant. It can explain memory. So memory is not sufficient to infer that there is a permanent, unchanging self. It is memory at each instant. Changing bundle of traces giving rise to memory at each instant. It can explain memory.
Changing bundles?
So memory is not sufficient to infer that there is a permanent, unchanging self.
I am unfamiliar with that. Memory does not prove permanence, and changing self, the idea of samskara.
A changing bundle of traces giving rise to memory at each instant.
Changing bundle of traces giving rise of memory at each instant. I don't get what he means by that, what that argument means. Changing bundle of traces. What do you mean changing bundle of traces? If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. I honestly, a changing bundle of, what is traces then? I don't know. I guess perhaps that's the thing that needs to be defined. Because, I mean, okay, so in terms of the memory, our brains clearly stores memory. The memory itself doesn't prove the self, but the awareness of the memory is the proof. That's the thing that I would say is the counter argument, unless they have an argument against that, which I don't know. The thing that's aware of the fact that there is memory and the memory stores things of the past and the present. But yeah, I think that's about the only argument I can give for that. It's like, I get what they're saying. I mean, our brains, things can store memory. We can write something down, and like that's what happened in the past. Writing on a piece of paper is a storage of memory to a degree. If you write something down on a piece of paper, when you read it, you'll bring up the memory. It's a storage of memory, different kind of that what you think about. Like a memory card or something. A video is a storage of memory as well. You could replay the events that happened in the past. Your mental memory is kind of like that. Writing it down is a physical wording memory, but when you read it, you have that thing playing back in your mind, kind of like if you watch a video game. It's like, oh, I remember that. But the awareness portion is where I get where Advaita Vedanta is coming from, because something has to be aware of those memories, otherwise it's just, well, memories, events that happen, but it's events that happen, but nothing's aware of it.
It can explain memory. So memory is not sufficient to infer that there is a permanent, unchanging self. In fact, Buddhists will go further and say, how can an unchanging self register experiences and recall them in memory? That needs some change.
I will say that's the thing I was thinking of. Like, how can the Atman itself know about these experiences or be affected by memory or experiences, sadness, joy, happiness, likes, dislikes? But I guess the way to explain that is the fact that perhaps your awareness is aware of the likes and dislikes, the good and the bad, and picks and chooses based on your brain, what your brain remembers and likes and dislikes. So, but that would imply that the Turiya itself, or the Atman, is affected by the memory. Otherwise, it would say, good, bad, well, let's just pick the bad one, why not? I mean, I'm not affected by it, so why not? I mean, I guess if you understand that you're unaffected by it, you could pick it and have the bad stuff still happen to you.
So unchanging self is not proved by memory. Another attack could be, the Buddhist attack is substance and quality. So a flower, when you see a flower, it has a red rose, the redness of the rose, the soft touch of the rose, the fragrance of the rose, and when you drink the rose water, a particular rose taste of the rose, the taste and the form and the touch and the fragrance, these are qualities. And the idea was that there is a substance which holds the qualities. That's a Nyaya idea. Dravya is necessary for guna. Substance is necessary for quality. So there is a substance called a rose in which the qualities, the form, the taste, the smell and the touch, they all inhere in that. The Buddhist says why? Why is a substance necessary to hold the qualities? Why not a bundle of qualities only? And has anybody seen the substance without the qualities? No. So why would you claim that there is a substance apart from the qualities, in which the qualities remain? So why do you say that there is a permanent Atma in which all the other characteristics inhere, or Atma which possesses this body-mind complex? So substance theory cannot be used, is not justified, and you cannot say on that analogy that there is an Atma, there is a self.
I will say I don't quite understand that argument either. A rose with certain qualities. That to me sounds almost like the argument it's making is the form and function, as I call it, where we say this is a pen. That's the name of it. The form is this. The function is it writes. So you could say, like, the qualities and substance, what it's made out of, and what the quality is that it writes, I believe. Perhaps that's what he's going with there. Again, if any kind of question I state, please let me know if you have an opinion about it, because I do try to read them as much as I can, especially the emails that I get. So that's what I'm assuming is going by form and function there.
There is, by seeing the intelligent action of other beings, I can infer that there is a self in them. I, the self, have a desire to speak, and then I can see that I am speaking. So when others speak, I can infer that there is an intelligent self in each of them, just like in me, in them also. That also the Buddhist says it is a flawed inference, and there are reasons why. That you cannot infer that there is a self, either in myself or in others, just by looking at intelligent action. That is the fourth one. Another objection. So these are not objections that Swami Vivekananda gave. Swami Vivekananda just said that the Buddhists say that there is a series of changes in the mind, and those changes give the illusion of a permanent Atma. Series of thoughts and feelings come in process, like a stream of consciousness, and they generate the illusion that there is a permanent self. But just for the sake of completion, the fifth objection of the Buddhists to the self is that cognition. So when I experience an object, and that is the object of my knowledge, and I have the knowledge of that object, these two are indubitable. You have knowledge and you have this object of knowledge, but knowledge is a relationship. So a relationship must have at least two terms. Here is the object, and there must be a subject. So every knowledge proves that there must be a subject, that I am the subject of my knowledge. Subject, object, and in between there is knowledge. If you have object, clearly you are aware of different objects, and you have the knowledge, that is also very clear. If the knowledge is a relationship, then the other term, the subject of that relationship, must be there. So in more technical language, intentional object proves that there must be an intentional subject also. The Buddhists deny this entirely. For them, these relationships are not real except the causal relationship, and so the intentionality does not prove the existence of a permanent subject.
Just interesting. Interesting arguments. Just because, again, I understand the knowledge that I obtained from this is the fact that I'm assuming this is how it's meant to be interpreted. I'm assuming the knowledge I obtained from this is the fact that it's a pen, and when the knowledge I gained from clicking on this brings down this little tiny point, and when I use that little point on a paper, it writes. So the knowledge that I obtained between clicking and the fact that it's a pen and that point comes out and I write on a piece of paper, it's all from my true self, myself, the subject. How can you deny that? There must be something obtained in this knowledge. I can, like, even if you don't say the Atman, you can say the brain, the memory itself. Again, he's saying that. I don't know, very interesting. I definitely have to think. That's something I can't just answer right off the bat. But it's interesting. But you cannot deny the subject there, whether it be just a brain or an Atman, because something is aware of the object.
So for these 5 reasons, the Buddhists say that there is no Atma. No Atma, Brahman, nothing like that. What is the answer then? What would Advaita, what would Vedanta say to this? Swami Vivekananda says, just look, there are these two sides. One side, the materialistic side, maybe modern scientific materialism, or in an entirely different form, Buddhist momentariness. They say that there is this continuous changing matter, and consciousness is an appearance or a byproduct or even an illusion. There are theorists, philosophers today, like Daniel Dennett, who say that consciousness, they go to the extent of saying consciousness is an illusion, it's an appearance. Matter is real. So Swami Vivekananda, more than 100 years ago, says that there is this side which says matter and energy are real, your consciousness is a byproduct or even an illusion. On the other side is Advaita Vedanta, which says consciousness is real, matter is an illusion. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahman is real, the world is an appearance. Consciousness is real and the world, matter is an appearance. Which side will you take? These 2 positions, just diametrically opposite. And this is Swami Vivekananda, more than 100 years ago. He puts these 2 positions and says, which side will you take? And he says, certainly I will take the side of consciousness or spirit. Why? Why? He says the arguments are stronger on this side. What are the arguments? Why would you take that consciousness is real, matter is an appearance? Why would you take that we are not bodies and minds really, though we appear to be, but we are actually consciousness? Why? He gives 2 reasons. One reason is very interesting. The first one, both are very interesting. So we'll quickly look at the reasons, how he deals with these objections. And the reasons he gives are valid, very powerful, even more valid today than they were 100 years ago. The first one, he says, because we only feel ourselves, nobody has ever seen matter outside of himself. These are his words. Nobody has ever seen matter outside of himself. We feel only ourselves. I've never met a man who can jump out of his skin and experience something. What does he mean by this?
I'm thinking, let me try to guess what he's trying to say here. So basically, everything that I experience is coming to, in a sense, it's being experienced by my five senses. And those five senses are not the one that's being, that are the ones that are experiencing things. They're merely the messenger. So when I touch, again, this pen, the sensation I'm touching here goes into my body, into my brain. My sight goes into my sight, seeing the light particles and the color and the shades, and going to my eyes and into my brain. Then from my brain, it's interpreting these things to your consciousness. So your consciousness is the only thing that can ever experience anything, and without it you experience nothing, perhaps. Because the thing that I said before is where everything must manifest in your consciousness for it to exist. Otherwise, if it doesn't manifest in your consciousness, it doesn't exist. Doesn't, like if a blind person, if I were to show them this, it doesn't exist until they touch it, because then they can experience it if they still have feelings, hand feelings.
This is the first counter he gives. And the second counter he gives is the spiritual explanation. The explanation from the side of the spirit is a better explanation of the universe. It explains the universe. The materialistic explanation is illogical, he says. So why? First of all, let's consider his remarkable statement that nobody has experienced matter outside himself. That seems to be strange. At first glance, it seems that this is not true. We are experiencing matter here. I am seeing people and chairs and fans and light and all of this I can see, I can hear and smell and taste and touch. All these things outside of myself. But if you look carefully, whatever you are experiencing, is it outside of your awareness, outside of your consciousness? No, in a very trivial sense. By definition, the very fact that you claim to experience something means that consciousness is already involved there. Let me repeat that. That I see something. If I am asleep, can I see something? No. I am hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. And even more so, I am thinking about physics and cosmology and space and time. Already consciousness is involved there. The very use of the word, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, thinking, understanding, remembering, all of these are consciousness events. In consciousness they appear and disappear. These are functions of the mind and the senses, and without consciousness there is no experience possible. All experience is in consciousness, by definition, by the definition of the word experience. What is the word experience? Can you define it? Yes. Experience is equal to consciousness plus object. Experience is equal to consciousness plus object. I see a flower. It is consciousness plus the object flower. Consciousness lighting up the mind, and through that the sense organs like the eyes, and through the eyes I experience the flower. This is non-controversially a definition of experience. So in every experience, consciousness is involved. You cannot leave consciousness out of it.
Experience. Practical contact with an observation of facts or events. Oh, I wanted to look it up. He said it. Not quite the definition he was talking about, but close enough.
Swami Vivekananda says nobody has ever experienced matter outside oneself. Oneself means outside consciousness. The philosopher Galen Strawson, he wrote an article called The Hard Problem. He talks about the hard problem of matter, slightly half humorously but half seriously also. He says we talk so much about the hard problem of consciousness, that how can a brain produce consciousness? How can matter of the brain produce first-person experience of consciousness? So-called hard problem of consciousness.
I do wonder now, as I think about that, like the hard problem of consciousness. It's kind of like, how does a single-cell organism all of a sudden create a multi-cell organism? or an organism like us, where we weren't exactly multicell organisms until much later on, and even now we're like a literal biome for germs and stuff too. We are ourselves are not very much us. There are a lot of other things in our body that are. I think we're mostly made out of not us. I think because we are literally covered in germs. We are a planet for germs. But I wonder what to say about that. Like, a single cell organism. That's how I assume Earth was started, and then from single cell become multi-cell to to different kinds of animals, evolution throughout time. Perhaps that could be a thing where once it gets to a certain point, certain kind of neurons are firing. I don't know. Again, this is to for the materialistic point of view. The argument for materialistic point of view is the fact that we weren't exactly born multicellular. Well, actually, we are, but how we came to be the way we are is from a single cell, I believe. I don't think science is quite sure about that yet, but that's the theory, I believe.
He says there is no hard problem of consciousness really. We have already convinced ourselves that there is something called a brain which is producing consciousness, and then we can't imagine how brain is producing consciousness, and we say hard problem. But really speaking, consciousness is directly evident to all of us all the time. The first thing that we are aware of, or through which we are aware, is consciousness. Everybody, all the time. Without that, we cannot be aware of anything. Without that, we cannot have any experience. So consciousness is fundamental to our experience. After that, he says, comes matter. It is through that consciousness that we are aware of the body and the physical world, and we study it and we find matter. What matter is the real question. And he says, as we investigate matter more and more, modern physics, matter is he says it's disappearing before our very eyes. From molecules to atoms to subatomic structures to protons and neutrons to quarks, and now they're talking about superstrings. So, what is matter? That is becoming more and more a mystery as you study it deeper and deeper. Consciousness is not a mystery, it's directly evident.
That's kind of funny. The deeper you dive for an answer, the more questions come up. That's hilarious. It's like, man, I don't know. You can go into science, like, I came here to look for some answers. I came here with one questions, and I got 1,000.
Only if you say matter produces consciousness, it becomes a mystery, becomes hard problem of matter. Almost exactly in the same tone, 100 years ago, Swami Vivekananda is saying, matter is never experienced by anyone outside oneself. Then he goes further and says this cryptic statement, we only feel ourselves, we only experience ourselves. What does it mean? All that we experience is consciousness. That sounds very new agey, but that sounds crazy. No, it is not, and it can be demonstrated. It can actually be demonstrated right now. This comes from Greg Good, who is here in New York, who is a psychologist and an Advaitin, non-dualist, Advaita Vedanta and modern psychology. And he gives this very nice thought experiment to show how we experience only ourselves, how consciousness is the only thing that is experienced by us. Consciousness experiences consciousness. How? This is what he proposes, step by step.
I have something to say. I don't know if I should say it now or wait till the end of this explanation. But it's about the experience that we feel in our hand, right? There's an experiment where they touch your hand and you experience it, you see it. But all of a sudden they don't touch your hand, but yet you experience it. I'll explain a little bit after.
Start with a very ordinary experience. Just imagine, or you can do it practically also. You're looking at a flower, maybe a red flower. Now, in the first stage, he says, ask yourself this question. is there a flower apart from the seeing of the flower? I'm seeing a flower. So is there an object called a flower apart from the seeing? Is there something called a flower which says, hey, I am a flower apart from your seeing? You are seeing a flower, and apart from that, there is something, some object called flower. See, your mind tells you. So ignore that. Just attend closely to your experience, actual experience of seeing the flower. In seeing the flower, you will find all that you're experiencing is seeing a flower. Color, red, the shape of the flower. That's what you're seeing. Apart from that, is there an actual object called a flower which you're experiencing? No. All you're experiencing is seeing the flower. Stage 1. We have no evidence of an object apart from we have no experience of an object apart from the sensing, whether it's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Apart from that there is a separate object which we label flower out there. This is mind doing it. Not experience. You're not experiencing it. So stage 1, no object apart from the experiencing. This itself takes some time getting used to, but you will see all you have to do is calmly settle down and attend to your experience of seeing a flower. You will see all that there is seeing the flower, not a flower separate, not an object item separate from your seeing. So seeing is going on. Now the second state is that seeing of the flower, is it anything apart from your awareness? In your awareness comes a picture of a flower. Apart from that awareness, is there any seeing going on? First of all, is there any object apart from the seeing? No. Now, second question is there any seeing apart from awareness? No, it's impossible. By very logic, you will see that if there is no awareness, there's no question of seeing. If you fall asleep, you can't see anything. While you are seeing, you will see that this flower is like a picture on a screen. The screen is awareness, suppose, and the picture is like a movie on that screen. On the screen of your awareness, there is the movie or the picture of a flower which is playing. Just as the movie does not exist apart from the movie screen, similarly, the seeing of the flower also does not exist apart from the consciousness. You can imagine the consciousness as an ocean in which the seeing of the flower is a wave in that ocean. Just as the wave does not exist apart from that ocean, before the wave, only the ocean was. During the wave, only the ocean is. And when the wave subsides, it goes back to the ocean. Even when the wave has come, it is not something apart from the ocean. Even when the seeing of the flower is going on, it is not anything at all apart from consciousness or awareness. So in the last analysis, in every knowledge, in every experience, all that you, consciousness, are experiencing is yourself, consciousness. Consciousness experiences consciousnness. Swami Vivekananda, more than 100 years ago, he says, we feel only ourselves. Where is even the evidence for matter requires consciousness.
Actually, that was actually pretty good. Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm saying that I learned from that. It's the fact that in order to be aware of anything, it must manifest in your consciousness, and without it, well, you're not aware of it. So the experiment was, they have people put their arm down, right, and they have a wall somewhere. I forget, it's like a wall right here. Then right next to that wall is a fake arm. Plastic arm, but they have your arm covered, and they kind of have this area covered, so you see the arm, the fake arm, and then you don't really see it like where it connects to or anything like that. And they have the person, when they touch you here, they also touch the plastic arm. They do that a couple of times. So they touch you up here, they touch they do it at the same time. Like they touch your hand and they touch the plastic arm. So they do like this. They just kind of match the where they touch you and where they touch the plastic arm. So they do, I forget how long they do that for, but then they do this. They're not even touching your arm, but you feel it. Whenever they touch you here, you feel it there. When they touch when they touch the plastic arm here, you feel it there. When they touch the plastic arm there, you feel it there. And it's very interesting that do that. I want to experience that for myself to see if I do it too. And I have a feeling I would probably fall for it, and it's just very fascinating, especially with like phantom limbs as well, where people still feel like they have a limb there, even though it's not there, even though they can see it, but they can still experience it. So anyways, I'm going to pause right here. This has been quite the talkative episode for sure. And I actually really liked it quite a lot. Hopefully I didn't talk too much though. Anyways, that's my reaction for this one. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.